Hey guys, John here. Avenger 2.4 is now out with a lot of cool stuff in this update. So, the first one is going to be a custom art mode, and we're going to go into that in just a little bit. That also has 70 presets to go through. And we also have 50 new quantum presets, which is probably one of my favorite effects in the entire synthesizer. We also have 3 new effects. Those are going to be the Ruta Chorus, the Ruta Distortion, and then the Phase Puncher. We also have a new mod source, and this has to do with incrementing voices, which is really interesting. And then we have a preset preview option, which is helpful if you're starting to make a lot of different patches and you kind of want the preview to be a little bit different. And then we also have a really cool new legacy skin. So let's dive right into the custom art mode. Okay, so I think the best way to kind of showcase this custom art preset is to start off from a spot that we're all familiar with. So we have a fresh preset here. Now let's make something somewhat listenable. Let's bring the mix up here and let's send it to the ARP because that's what we're going to be using. And then let's give it here some modulation. I really like this filter. Okay, that should work for now. Okay, so we're sending this to the ARP and we're here in the ARP page. So this is kind of a familiar spot that we are at, right? So there's mode up. So what we can do, let's add a couple of notes here. So let's go here for C, E, and this right into G. So we have a C, E, G. Right, let's bring this down to the speed down so it's a little bit easier to follow. So we're basically ascending these notes, right? And we even go a little bit slower. Right, so we're kind of just hitting this. Just repeating, going upwards, right? Because our mode is now up, and then we can go down. Pretty self-explanatory, then alternate. Just going up and down, right? So that's a basic spot where we should all understand that, right? We can change the octaves, which we've already been through. Right, and then we can offset these here by semitones. So that's kind of a good spot to kind of refresh. Okay, so we know how this works. So now what happens once we go into the custom mode? We see this and we're like, okay, these notes are gone. What's happening here? What are these little bars here? So first of all, let's make this a little bit simpler to look at. So let's bring this down to about 8. So we have just 8 steps to work with. Okay, so the first things that we know is this is going to be the octaves, right? So we hit a note. That's our first note. We bring it up. It's an octave above. We can bring it down. Octave below. So we know this part so far. And then here's the semitones, right? So we already know how that works. And then we click the arrows. We have our ratchets and all that. We've already been over that. But this part here is what we need to concentrate on. So we click this here and we see this menu. So what does this mean? So first of all, what we should do is play these notes and see what happens. So here, it's just hitting the C the whole time. That's all it's necessarily doing. Because if we click on this, we have 5 different options to pick from. We're going to talk about these buttons in just a little bit here, but first concentrate on these right here. So this is going to be playing the first note that we're pressing, right? So it's hitting this C. And it's doing that for every single note. Okay, so now let's say we want to kind of maybe emulate an ascending type of thing for a couple notes. So let's go to the second step because we know the first one is playing the root. So we'll go here, we'll deselect this guy, and then we'll select the second one, which is going to be the second note in our chord. Right, so here as it ascends right here again, which is essentially we're doing this, C, and then going to E. And then back to the root. So maybe now you're going to kind of figure out, okay, how do we incorporate this G note in here? So we click here, let's remove this guy, and that's going to be the third note in our chord, obviously, right over here. Okay, so if we want to start doing an ascending thing like we started in the beginning, just going upwards, we have these first 3 notes down, and obviously this second one here, because this is kind of where it restarts again. So for this step, we would just have to remove this here, go to the second one, and then the third one, remove this here, go to the third one, and then this here again is at the root, and then we have another step here, which technically what we can do is just bring this down to 7 because we're doing 3 notes and in an even 8 steps. So this would be more accurate, I suppose, or I guess we can go something like that, but hopefully you get the point. You have a double note there, so we can just remove that. So this is essentially doing the exact same thing we were doing when we were going upwards, right? And then downwards, you can probably figure it out, right? We'd go 3, and then this next step would be still here. That would still work. And then this one here would go back to the root. So we hopefully understand that so far. So let's go back to about 8 here. Okay, so this is kind of cool. Now you might be asking, okay, well, what can we do differently here that we can't do in some other ones? So this is kind of cool as well. So let's say for this first step, we don't have to have one. We can select this one right over here. Or we can select all 3 of these notes to play on this one step here. And maybe do the same thing again right over here. So here we can kind of decide how many notes and which one of those notes, I guess, that we play during that step, which is actually really interesting, and it kind of opens up a lot of possibilities. So we have 5 here. So if we play these 5, we obviously don't have 5 notes, so maybe we want to add some more. So maybe we can add another one right over here, another C, and then maybe another E. So now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now all of these, since they're all selected, we'll play all of these at the same time. And then these play the 3. And we can even do something like, let's say, let's remove these C and G, and then maybe let's go like really high up so we can really see what's going on here. Like play these notes. So you notice how on the first step, it's going to play these higher ones here. And it plays these 3 down over here. So hopefully that's starting to make sense there. So that's actually really cool how this works out. Now we open this menu up, and we can kind of decide which ones of our chord that we want to play. So you always have to kind of think about, okay, well, if I have maybe 3 notes selected or 3 chords or something like that, and I'm hitting this one right over here. So let's do that real quick. So we have 3 empties, and then on the 4th one, this one is selected. So let's remove these 3 notes, and then we're on the one that technically shouldn't have a note. And we hear something. Okay, so why is that exactly? Now that has to do with this fallback, and this is going to the lowest MIDI note, which is this guy. That's why we're hearing that. However, we have a couple of different things. We have next lower MIDI key, we have a random key for that to press, or we have silence. So in this case, we shouldn't hear anything because we have 3 notes, and then we have 3 empty spaces, and this one here, the 4th one, is going to be selected. So we have nothing on that step. So it's kind of a cool way to say, okay, if we have a certain amount of notes, and this 1 through 5 is selected on a number that's higher than the number of notes that we have in our chord, what are we going to do with it? What's going to happen? So that's why there's this fallback method. So like you saw, it was silence. Then we can go to the lowest MIDI key note, which you just saw, or the next to lower MIDI key. So that's kind of what these do. Random key, that's pretty self-explanatory. So yeah, that's kind of what this one down here does. Now, we can select root, and then these ones here are not going to be selectable anymore because it's selected on root, which is just this first one right over here, which is pretty self-explanatory, which is going to hit this C right here. Pretty cool. Okay, so then moving on from here, we can always select to random, and then I guess, whatever it decides, whatever the universe decides, whatever note that should be, that's basically what it can be. So we can have a couple different steps be random, but most of them be determined, which is really interesting as well, because we can maybe do like 3 steps being determined, and then the last 4th one could be random, and kind of make that pattern, which kind of goes into that philosophy where it's kind of controlled randomness in that sense, which still fits the chords, which is kind of interesting. So that's why this is so, I suppose, custom in that sense. So another thing that we should talk about, let's go here and then let's go to the default settings, and let's go back to our custom mode and bring this back down to 4 and bring our pattern down to about 8. Okay, so we still have the same chord, and remember when we started this, it's still hitting this right over here. So let's do something like we're doing in the beginning of this. So let's do this here. Let's kind of do like an ascending kind of thing, right? So root, and then the next note, and then the next note. Then we're going to go back down again right over here. And then we're going back to the root, and then so on, so forth. And maybe, I guess we can go up like this, and then here. We'll do the same thing, and maybe just remove that or something like that. Or bring the sound back to the root. Maybe do this right over here, and then this guy, we can go like that, and we're on 6. Okay, so we have this basic thing here. Now, generally with our arps, we can choose the different patterns and stuff like that. So if you go 2 octaves, I'm sure you'll guess what's going to happen. Now we also have this octave interval down over here, which we can go, for example, let's go to 1 step, and let's take a listen. So if you notice here, it's not hitting this E, it's hitting the next one up. So let's go and see. So we have this octave interval from 1 step all the way down to 8 steps. We can choose the octaves 1 through 4, kind of standard how we have for our regular ARP. But yeah, so this is very interesting, and it's kind of one of those things where you do have to spend a little bit of time with it to really kind of wrap your head around it. So hopefully this kind of explains it in a somewhat decent, easy way to understand. But hopefully it also goes to show how creative you can get with these kind of things. And speaking with the creative stuff, if we go to our presets under the custom category down over here, we have a lot of these different ones to pick from. And these are interesting to kind of just study with because we can see, okay, this one's doing the root. We have the second one over here. We're not doing any changes to any semitones, notes down over here. We're doing some octave shifts right over here. Here's another root. There's another root, and so on and so forth. So it's going to sound like that. And again, this one's kind of interesting because this second step is hitting the first two notes right over here, which is going to be these two right there. And then let's see another one here. And this is kind of what I was talking about as well. So here, this is all determined pretty much, I guess, depending on whatever chord that we play. But these last steps over here are selected on the random mode. So it's kind of interesting because every time this ARP cycles, you're going to have a different ending, at least for these three steps right over here. So yeah, it's pretty cool. That's interesting. Yeah, so definitely load this up, maybe make some interesting kind of patch, send that through the ARP, put some cool effects on it. Maybe let's say we'll go to delay and then I guess maybe some root reverb. It's a lot of decay. The world is your oyster, I suppose. Definitely spend some time and go over this custom ARP. It's a lot of fun, and you can really make some crazy stuff with it. Okay, so let's move on here. Okay, so next up, let's check out the Ruta Chorus. So I'm always a sucker for chorus, so whenever there's a new chorus, I'm actually really excited about that. So right now, we have a default saw wave as we usually do, and generally for me, I like to check out choruses, just sending one saw wave through it and kind of seeing what the chorus spits out and just how it reacts to that. So let's right click here and then let's go down to the modulation section here at the bottom, this Ruta Chorus, and this is going to be the default one here. And I really like this touchdown here with these moving, the different voices kind of just going back and forth and the speed of it. I feel like it really helps identify what's going on. And not to mention with this here, not only do you get a new chorus, like a new effects module, but you also get a lot of these different presets with this. And as I was going through these, this big ensemble kind of stole my heart here. And keep in mind, this is one saw wave. So kind of beautiful. Even we have no release, right? And it still sounds nice. Right? And that's just, like I said, that's one saw wave going through this chorus, a lot of different presets to check from. So in this case, I'd maybe put on some delay and then also maybe combine it with a root reverb that just seems appropriate. Where I do some filter motion. Yeah, so this thing really fattens it up. So definitely check out some of the default presets. They're really nice to play through and just kind of mess with the controls, make your own presets and kind of just, or I should click on here for it. But yeah, definitely check it out. And again, this is a nice touchdown over here. All right, next up, we have the Ruta Distortion. So again, we have a default preset. Let's right click here under Distortion, down over here, Ruta Distortion. And again, it's really cool having these graphics down over here. There's something visually pleasing about it, I suppose. So first thing we have under our mode, we have by default, we have warm tube. However, we can click this and we have the warm saturator, colored amp, clipping, laser melt, and again, lots of different presets to go through. So let's kind of check out a few of these. Some gentle color. And notice down here at the waveform as well. Ooh, that would be kind of cool. Maybe like an outro of some type of song or something. Ooh, I can add some. Oh, see, this is already inspiring. Oh, that needs some. That needs some vibrato. Okay, so now some reverb. See, this is what I'm talking about. We need some release on this bad boy as well. Oh, and some spread. Okay, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. Okay, let's turn these off. Let's go with a couple other ones. See, I'm already getting inspired by this one. Band Surfer. I gotta remember that one. That is nice. I do like that one. Okay, what do we else got here? Colored. Let's use the 24 on this one. I'm gonna use some of this on the some new synthwave songs. I think this sounds really nice. Yeah, definitely check that one out. All right, let's load up some Phase Puncher. Again, default preset. And let's right click here. And under the modulation category down here at the bottom, Phase Puncher. It's kind of crazy just looking at this. I'm just like, Jesus Christ, there's so many effects here. But anyway, okay, we have Phase Puncher. So this is default. Can already start making a patch with that cheese. Okay, next up, we have Baseline Punch, use Vib Phase Knob. Jeez, that sounds weird. If you don't have headphones, pause this right now and go get your headphones. That is wild. Okay, we got binaural. Phase Chorus 2. That might be nice with some unison through that. Let's do... Are we brave enough for Abyss today? I think we are. And some shimmer? Okay, you convinced me. Ooh, that low one's nice on that. Oh, and the shimmer to finish us off. That's amazing. Oh, that's just beautiful. Okay, so yeah, this one is really cool. Again, if we click this here, lots of presets to go through. So check them out. Maybe combine all of them and see what you come up with. All right, so now let's get into the new mod source. Now, this is going to be found under the math increment, and basically what this is doing is new voices will have new values or different values. So this is interesting in the sense that, let's actually just demonstrate this here. So for our mod source, we're again on a fresh preset. Let's go to plus here and then down here under math. Now, before we had increments, and Before we go through the new voice ones here, let's kind of just talk about Increment here real quick, just in case you're unfamiliar with it. So we have Increment, and this is basically going to, like the name suggests, increment by 4. So for example, if we bring down our cutoff, something like this here, we have this type of sound. Now let's drag and drop this to our cutoff, and let's give this a value of, I don't know, let's go 25 or something like that. Or, let's go a little bit less. Let's go 20. So now let's play some notes. So you can see how it's incrementing this cutoff knob here by the value that we give it here. And it's 4, right? After 4, it resets back to default. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going back again. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so that kind of makes sense. Now this is a cool idea. It's a cool concept. However, if we went to the ARP, for example, we would notice the ARP won't trigger this here unless we hit another note. However, now with this new voice version, what we can do, let's remove this here for now. So with this voice version, every new voice is going to get it or give it a new value. So let's go back here to the plus again. Let's go to the math. And for this one, I guess we did 4 last time. So I guess we can do 4 for the voices. And now if we drag and drop this to our cutoff, and let's do the same value, I guess like 20 or something like that. So now this works here, which is actually really, really cool. So long story short, a new voice will produce a new value, and here's going to be, how it always works with the depth, whatever you want it to be, and just map it to whatever you want. So hopefully you start thinking what you could do with this modulation source. So have fun with that one. So with Avenger 2.4, we also get a new skin, and if you don't know how to change that, here on the middle right under the System tab, make sure to select that, and then here on Skin, kind of in the center, click that here. And 2.0, this is the default one, which I think is my personal favorite. Maybe I'm just used to it, but we can scroll through here and pick different skins. Here's the Avenger 1, and this guy is the new one. So let's take a look at this one. Let's go to Activate, and let's hit OK. Now this is the Legacy skin. So if you're in FL, all we have to do to reload this, we can just click these 2 buttons here, and then there you go. Now this is what the new skin looks like, and it's kind of interesting because the first time I looked at this, it almost seemed like Avenger is now home, maybe, right? It kind of fits in with the other Vengeance products, it kind of felt like. So it's kind of matching the theme with everything else. But yeah, this is what the new one looks like. It's definitely a new look. And yeah, that's how you change it over here in the System tab. So last but not least, for those of you who like keeping your presets organized and the preview's nice, we have a new option now. So generally before we would make presets so we can update the preview, and it kind of just is what it is. So that was basically chosen from this sequence I made. So now we can right click this here. We can go update preview, and here we have some different settings. So maybe we want just the left zone only, and it's going to think about it, and then let's check it out. Which is kind of cool. We can right click this again. Let's go to maybe left zone with melody. Let's check that out. And this is going to change depending on the type of preset that you make, so keep that in mind. So for example, if we own our leads, maybe a funky tone example, update preview, this is what I have here available, and maybe this one here. Let's pause that here. So again, it's going to change depending on what you have. Let's go back to another sequence just to confirm that one more time. Maybe let's do Kinda Groovy, which, we don't have a preview for this guy. So let's right click and let's go to, let's first start with left zone only and see what that sounds like. Okay, that sounds kind of groovy. Now let's see if we go to update preview with left zone with melody again. See what that sounds like. Okay, that's kind of interesting. And then maybe another preview here. Let's go to C minor chord to see what that sounds like. Okay, that's kind of cool actually. And then if we load it here, we have our, our sound here. So all in all, Avenger 2.4 packs quite a punch, a really, really cool update, especially with the custom ARP. There's going to be a lot of new possibilities. I can already see some crazy presets already on the horizon with that one, the effects and so on and so forth. So definitely a really, really cool update. Now, there's also a lot of fixes that were done as well. And if you're curious to read through those, you can check those out on the Vengeance website, or I've also included them in the video description below. If you want to read them there, that is up to you. So yeah, awesome update. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.